Welcome to episode 183 of Trek Live. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about some destinations that are not too pleasant to visit in the Star Trek universe. But before we jump into that, Bill, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. Excited to tackle, a more in-universe kind of Star Trek topic. I think kind of in that headspace a little bit after last week with the writers' room, and kind of living in the boundaries of what goes on on screen, so to speak. How are you?
I'm doing great. Anytime there's an open-ended topic like this, I think it leaves room for some great discussion, and I'm really excited because this big of an open-ended topic could go any direction, any place in the Star Trek universe. So I'm excited. But before we jump into the today's topic, Bill, how's your rewatch going?
Rewatch is going well.
Yeah.
I watched, I believe, since we did this last. I watched Resurrection from Deep Space Nine, which is one of your absolute favorites. Not one of mine or yours, in reality.
Yeah, I am not fond
Yeah,
of that episode. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's we covered it a bit in I'm sure a rewatch recap not that long ago because you were just watching season 6. But this is definitely the point where I think the Mirror Universe and the Intendant have kind of tapered out a little bit. I think you mentioned. I think you made the point that tackling the. I give the episode credit because it does like kind of call this out and makes a point to address that this has already kind of happened and that one of our other characters has dealt with this already. But we've already kind of done our character reconnects with a mirror version of a dead loved one.
Yeah.
And Sisko has that conversation with Kira. So I appreciate that they reference in the show that this is a different spin on the same kind of idea that we already did, more than once actually. But it nothing about it feels like fresh or dynamic. So don't love that one. Random Thoughts from Voyager is an interesting little standalone sort of issue of the week kind of episode with the extremely telepathic aliens regulating thought. You can commit a crime by thinking of like a violent act because it might permeate into somebody else's.
Yeah, it's like Minority Report
acts.
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point for sure. I think that's okay. There's some good Tuvok stuff. What were you gonna say?
That's just what I remember from the episode. It just felt like, and I'm not sure which came first, but yeah.
Minority Report is a book came first. This was before the movie, so I'm sure for like the masses,
it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah. But good stuff with Tuvok. I like seeing him, deal with another culture's sort of legal system and having a sort of a tango with another security kind of officer, law enforcement official. There's some good scenes there. The woman who plays the law enforcement officer official on that planet is one of the actresses who plays one of the Duras sisters. I think it's Gwyneth Walsh who plays Lursa. So getting to see her like out of makeup doing a non-Klingon is a cool little thing. And then I watched Statistical Probabilities yesterday.
I enjoy that one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's got some colorful,
guest
broad
actors,
guest stars, that are getting to play some big, broad things that you don't get to see in Star Trek very often. Usually, characters are, especially human characters, tend to be a little more subtle, a little more quietly portrayed. These guys are really bombastic and, distinctive characters. I love in our Discord server. Props to Caleb. He watched it last night, I think, and talked about how it really kind of adds to the stakes of the war. Having these guys, these characters in Bashir, really look at the analytics and present a case that it's not a winnable fight. with the current dynamics, and he kind of connected it kind of tees up in the Pale Moonlight a little bit with, this it's still on that track a little further into the year, and that's kind of, I think, maybe what pushes Cisco partially to need to do something to change the
balance at the scale.
yeah. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he knows that the way it's going now, and by that point he's actually seeing, I think, that prediction's coming true, that it's not winnable. And I don't think it's perfect. I think it could be a little bit. I think Bashir flies off the handle a little bit late in the episode, maybe a little more than I would have preferred to see it go. Yeah. But it does raise some really interesting questions, and it feels like an important piece of the Dominion War storyline.
I like what it kind of does. I know it's a lot of people, myself included, aren't happy with where the Bashir character went, but I think this is kind of an interesting wrinkle. I know he feels a little bit out of character at the end, a little bit, but I think just adding to his genetic stuff, I think this type of storyline, I think adds some good color that I think it needed, because up until this point, the genetically modified thing kind of just felt too easy and too cheap a little bit, and this kind of just adds an interesting wrinkle to that, kind of his backstory. So
I feel like they definitely had to do something with it. It seemed like they did it once they turned on that aspect of his character. It gets referenced here and there with he has to play darts from further back. He can throw out an equation, or he can calculate odds the way Spock or Data would. There are a couple scenes on the Defiant where he'll throw out a very Spock-esque line, and that I think they needed to do something to really dive into that aspect of his character and that newfound discovery for the audience with him. And on that level, it at least does that. It does something with that storyline that felt needed.
Yeah.
What about?
For me, I watched 3 episodes. I had a decent little run. Actually, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. Once more to the Breach, onto the Breach, and then the Siege of AR 558. Decent little run. I think AR 558 is probably the best episode of the bunch. It just really came out of nowhere for me. I didn't remember a whole lot, just being completely honest. But anytime Star Trek does, I guess Deep Space Nine does a war story, I think it's very successful. I think it's one of those I feel like it's often forgotten, at least for me. Just kind of came out of nowhere, but just all around great episode. It's not an episode that I would recommend just putting on casual Saturday night with some popcorn and stuff. It's definitely a heavy-handed episode for sure, but it's just quietly powerful. It's so good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. We talked a little bit off air last night, and I mentioned that I think Quark gets some of his best stuff to do in this episode. He's got some really powerful monologues that act kind of like, he kind of does the Spock and Data thing from the original series and
comments
the
on
Next Generation. He can comment on humanity from an outside perspective. And can get away with saying some things that a lot of our other characters probably couldn't. He's right. He makes a lot of really valid points, and I think there are a few times throughout Deep Space Nine where he pulls that out. He'll do something that is very quietly cutting in his analysis of humanity's hypocrisy or faults, and this one in that extreme wartime situation, with a member of his family kind of really touched by it, badly injured and probably life-changing circumstances. He's got some things to say, and I think they're really important to hear.
And I don't think he should be like this. I don't think this is protocol at all, but I think he's the perfect character to be able to do that, and I think that's why he's even on the ship. Like they're going to the front line. I don't expect a civilian to be able to do that.
Hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the hurdle you have to get over. That's the sort of dramatic license you have to grant for the episode to work. It could be okay with his purpose for being on the Defiant in the first place and then down on the planet. But if you can get there,
yeah, my headcanon is like he's part of the helping getting supplies. Like he got the supplies somehow. I don't know. We could headcanon your way out of anything, as most people.
I will say real quick that I really like Treachery, Faith, and the Great River a lot too. I think that does some really cool stuff with Nog and O'Brien. I love their more casual, working relationship.
Yeah.
The sort of trading up to get the equipment, like having that that the social network of engineers that are swapping out equipment and parts. That's a really cool thing to see. That I think Deep Space Nine is usually really good at. They're finding ways to explore.
Yeah.
That side of like living in Starfleet and working in Starfleet.
And not often at this point you don't get to see Nog be a Ferengi really anymore, and I think this is kind of a window into that. So
exactly.
Because you get some of that in the early seasons with Nog and him doing these types of deals and stuff. But
with
now
Jake, usually.
But now he was more of a straight lace type of Starfleet officer, and now it's like he's trying to using using you can take the Ferengi out of Ferengi culture, but you can't take the Ferengi culture out of the Ferengi. Like it's just I do love that episode as well.
Yeah, you're on a good little run. I think those three are pretty good.
Yeah,
all three of them. Should we dive right into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's I have I have a handful of places that I just wrote down just that came to mind kind of first.
So real quick, this is like a sister show to when we did maybe I don't remember when we did it, but it was a few months ago. We did an episode on in-universe vacation spots. I feel like it was like maybe towards the
springtime, I think.
Beginning of spring, when maybe there was a little bit of hope that things like getting out and going on vacation were looking a little more likely in the near future. So we were kind of imagining where we want to go and start the universe. We could finally get out and go someplace. That was a fun conversation. So if you haven't seen that or you weren't around for that one, check that out in our back catalog of videos after this one. But do you have one that is like the obvious place that came to mind first?
The obvious place that came to mind first was Rura Penthe, which I think is cited as like one of the worst places to go in the Star Trek universe. Like we go there a couple times. Very cold. I think just the ones that I've written down mostly are weather-based and environmentally based. So this is a very extreme side of that, a very extreme cold. But it's also it's like a penal colony. So like there's the inhabitants aren't the best on there as well. So I think it's just kind of checks all the boxes of extreme environmental conditions, and then just the people on there are probably the worst of the worst in a very savage type of culture. So yeah.
Yeah, that definitely came to mind right away. You want no parts. I wouldn't know parts of being anywhere near Rura Penthe. We see it twice, mostly in Star Trek 6, but in Judgment as well, which I know Ozzy Trekkie was in the room. Literally just watched.
Nice.
He was just
perfect
hanging out on Rura Penthe with Archer. Not a hospitable place. Some place you probably aren't getting out of alive. So yeah, that's an obvious that's a place to avoid. Kind of doubling back on what I just watched, when we had decided on this topic a couple weeks ago, I knew this was coming up, and just last Sunday I watched Random Thoughts, and I've always kind of had the opinion that I would have maybe a hard time with being around too many telepaths. Like that's something
no privacy,
no privacy at all.
Yeah,
and this is the planet that it's like kind of like Minority Report, like you said, it's just having a I would totally I could see myself being
slope.
just like B'Elanna.
Yeah.
Yeah. somebody
Yeah.
stepping on your foot. You think a fleeting thought, and all of a sudden you're locked up, and they're going to
Yeah.
purge your. They're going to do some angrammatic purge.
Yeah.
Not a appealing thought.
Yeah.
So, planet, and that's not the only planet. That's an extreme, I think, example
Yeah.
of the telepathic
Yeah.
existence being kind of pushed to a pretty extreme end of the spectrum. But I would be cautious with
Mhm.
telepathic
Yeah.
stuff. I just have to get used to it. I think I'd have to maybe become a little bit more disciplined or
Very
gain some
much
comfort.
so. Yeah.
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 For me, the next one on my list that we can talk about for a bit is Ferenginar. I feel like that is another one where the environmental conditions, it's a swampy, rainy place. It feels very just not good. But also, everywhere you go, you get charged. And you have to have a slip of, I feel like I'd get nickel and dimed. And then just even interacting with the Ferengis on there, they try to swindle you out of the money that you have with you. So I feel like I don't know, I'd lose everything there, and that's somewhere where I'd not want to go.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that, but being a human on Ferenginar, they're going to swindle the living daylights out of you.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, every piece of information you need, you're going to get.
Yeah.
I know you've traveled a little bit, and you've talked about a place like Paris. You've been there, and you felt like there was kind of tourist trappy. Yes. I think Ferenginar would make Paris look accommodating.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just anytime we go there, that there's always little amenities that you have to sit down in the waiting. You have to do a slip of it. Just oh man, it's just I feel like that's one of those places that I would not want to go. And the swampiness and raininess, yeah.
The climate for sure. Even though you're a Pacific Northwest guy, you're used to kind of more rainy.
Yeah, that's true.
But Ferenginar is a different kind of rain, I think.
Yeah,
that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if they charge their own people, you're Quark and you have to sit down and sit in the waiting room, and you got to tip and come up with money. They'll do it to a tourist. And probably worse.
Yeah.
I'll go with one that's a little off the beaten path and not so much climate driven, although kind of, I guess. Omicron Ceti 3 is the planet this side of paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting hit with those spores, and you're gonna be happy. You're gonna feel good about life. There might be a person on that planet that you're very happy to be with.
Yeah.
That's you're not going to be yourself.
You're not because it's not, and that's kind of you're not in control of kind of your body and your actions, and that's very scary. So I would definitely echo that. That's anytime there's an environmental type of interaction there with the spores and stuff that you can't control, that would freak me out. I would never want to go there. I think that's a really good one.
And you think about how many times Star Trek does the whole body possession, you get taken over by some sort of non-corporeal or a substance like that, and it kind of makes you out of control of your own body, and how often it's you end up being forced to do things that are bad or troublesome, or you kind of go down a dark road. Omicron, this side of paradise, I think the beauty of that episode is that it does the opposite. It makes you happy. It makes you content and chill and happy to be there, and you just want to settle and drink mint juleps and hang out with
stay there
Jill Ireland and have a good life. I'm sure we all get to points in life where that might sound not so bad to be happy and just chill with a beautiful girl and to have a happy life. But I think that episode makes a good point that
it's not
a sustainable way of living.
Yeah.
No.
It's and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's I feel like Star Trek has always done that, where the possession thing is always bad, but this is kind of flipping that idea on its head a little bit and saying, hey, this is not always good as well. So
agree.
Yeah.
we have a bunch of people in the chat actually. Cyber Honey's rattling off a whole bunch. Rob, which I will name Cyber Honey. You got some good ones there, but I'm drawn to Rob's. If you're a male, the planet in Favorite Son is not a good place to be either. that's a trap for sure.
Yeah,
not going to end well.
Jimmy77 is saying Cardassia Prime. Yeah, you look at someone wrong, you could get. Yeah, that's just.
Yeah, no thanks.
I think also parts of Kronos would definitely be bad. I think there's some like lower level back alleys that's. That's also like any like Orion. Type of planet too. That could get dangerous as well. Yeah. But I'd like to pivot to kind of a bigger topic, and maybe Bill, you hearing this would maybe make you want to do this is a separate topic, but I think the Delta Quadrant is not a good place, and I think this it's for a couple different reasons, right? I think there's at least it feels like to me there's not a big policing entity. Maybe the Borg, but again, they don't have like the best of intentions. There's no Federation type of entity out in that. So I mean, we got the Vidians, Hirogen, the Borg. I mean, there's just a lot of different species there, and I think that the scary part for me is that there is no bigger type of entity like that, at least that we know of there. So I think the Delta Quadrant is definitely one of those places that I would say no thanks. I don't want to go there because it feels like and maybe this was to the success of Voyager, but it feels more like the Wild West and more civilized and more uncivilized and more just a bunch of different bodies there that we get that are very scary. Like I would not want to go there.
It does seem like when you think about like the Alpha Quadrant, having the Federation there, and even the Gamma Quadrant with the Dominion, like there's at least like a singular body that encompasses like a vast amount of territory and regulates it depending on your perspective. Some people might like to live in the Gamma Quadrant under Dominion governance. Probably more of a Federation guy myself, but at least like there are these things. Even like there's the Romulan Empire, there's the Klingon Empire. Like there's these overriding, bigger, stretching, things that it does feel more like settled and developed, and where you're right in the Delta Quadrant, it feels much more scattershot with these smaller pockets of mostly not appealing places to be. You think about like I mentioned the Malon, and then even like those are the big ones, the ones you kind of rattled off: the Kazon, the Deans, the Hirogen, the Borg, all these things that are really
8472. Like there's so many. There's bigger,
but even the smaller ones, you're going to run into planets like Rob mentioned in Favorite Son that are not good. Like, and you could, they're little Venus flytraps that are going to ruin your ruin your prospects.
But that's like even in like the chain, like in Discovery, like there's still those big governing bodies do have some positives, and so that's why I think with the Delta Quadrant not having one of those, I think it just makes it even more dangerous.
It does.
So, yeah.
Definitely. Cyber Honey, just kind of go back to her. She mentioned a few places, the Gilum, which is that episode in season 2 of TNG, where Silence has leased that like black hole part of space where it turns out it's like a lab.
Yeah.
And the Enterprise crew, the rats. You don't want to be there. That's not good. Kronos, any Borg vessel, Galorndon Core from the enemy. That is not a happy place.
No.
Where Geordi finds himself. The cave and Final Mission where the water is there, but you can't cross the barrier. That would not be good either. So all good picks. Rob mentions the Critical Care Planet. If you get hurt.
Well, it depends what
Yeah,
Depends
exactly.
what
Yeah.
class you're
How
in,
the class
but
talk to.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
uh, real quick, back to the Delta Quadrant, the region of
Yeah.
space where there's nothing, in night.
Yeah. The
I
void.
think that would be tough. Um,
No.
yeah.
I'll go to a movie, and I would not want to be on Nimbus 3 from Star Trek
No.
5. That lame, the giant desert with nothing, the rocks, and
It's
a
like
really,
City
really
Alpha as
lame
well.
cantina bar.
Yeah.
Oh, what? What's that?
And City Alpha as well. If we're talking movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. City Alpha's no good.
Yeah. Just it feels like
Um,
sandstorms for days, like for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems there's a lot of those planets that are like very heat. Like there's a lot of heat and desert, and I think with the only thing that I think would be intriguing to me, like going to Vulcan, is like I feel like it's one of those planets where there is some extreme heat stuff. That's
Yeah.
one
Oh,
thing
yeah.
about Cardassia Prime. I feel like as well is that the heat is crazy. But back to Vulcan, I think the culture brings you to Vulcan, not the heat, because I think um, some
Yeah.
places like that are tough for heat.
Vulcan, I'm sure we mentioned on the places to vacation, but I would almost like the Vulcan Forge. Like I feel like a place like Vulcan with specific places like that, I'd like to see, but I'd want like a tour guide, like one of those like prepackaged
going to the
deals.
Grand Canyon.
Yeah, right. I want some guidance and some. I wouldn't want to get beamed down to the Vulcan Forge and just be like left to like have fun, have at it.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sound appealing really,
Yeah.
but with a little tour guide and some safety measures in place, sure. Even places like Kronos, I'd go to Kronos with a tour guide and some protocols. And even Cardassia Prime too, maybe. Cardassia Prime seems a little more risky.
Yeah, I don't know.
Getting picked off and
That would be scary.
charged with some bogus.
Yeah. You're found like you're
I
what is
think
it?
I'm a spy and not good.
But your decision is already made. Like it's like I don't know.
Show trial. when
Yeah.
you get charged.
Yeah, you're already
Yeah,
charged.
you go
It's just for formality's sake.
Mhm.
Yeah, Andoria or Andor, that feels cold too.
Yeah.
And they feel feisty as well. So that would be kind of scary. Very interesting to go there as well.
Definitely. You'd have to be. That's another one that I would chalk up to the right circumstances, right set of controlled
Yeah.
aspects, maybe.
Yeah.
But wouldn't want to just show up there and be left to my own devices and
Yeah.
have to work my way out.
Mhm.
I think kind of along the same lines as the planet in Random Thoughts that I just watched. I can't remember the name of it. The planet with Ito and Justice.
Mm.
You don't want to be on a planet where
No.
stepping on the wrong blade of grass could get you the death penalty. That doesn't seem like the safest place to go hang out.
Yeah.
So these places with like bogus justice systems and like backward or like very extreme
Yeah.
justice systems at least
Mhm.
would seem like a risky place to vacation or go visit.
Yeah. I think anytime you have to go somewhere to like battle and fight your way out, like that, I feel like they do that a lot in TOS, and there's some other. Trying to think of an example. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The Arconian moon or trip gets shot down. That goes up to 170 degrees Celsius in Dawn, which I know you just watched as a Trekkie. Yeah, that's another example. There are definitely these examples of, like you said, Dan, like climate-based place that we've seen on the show that are clear no's. That would definitely be one. It's a little toasty for me. What else is in here in the chat? There's talking about the Malon planet. But isn't like Cyber Honey mentions like
would it be
isn't the
okay?
planet supposed to be paradise because they
dump all this? Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I'll have to
region.
go back and watch
I think that region.
again, but I think there is.
that region of space maybe would be bad to visit, but yeah, I think at least from what I remember, it was the planet is okay. But I think the byproduct of that is they
shitty places around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. The Devore Imperium, that's another one of the Delta Quadrant. If you are a telepath,
well, yeah, if you're a telepath, yeah.
If you're not, I don't think they have. I mean, they're pretty authoritarian. I don't know how welcoming they are, but even if you're not telepathic, but Zircona 4, Tasha Yar's home planet, as Krypton says. There's a lot of stories that here over the course of the show, and in Legacy we go there, and that definitely does not look like a pleasant place. So that's another good call that I didn't think of. But definitely.
The Gamesters planet is what I was thinking of. Arena,
not good.
playing on Arena.
Yeah.
But yeah, having that collar, I don't know. I don't know if anyone in their right mind would want to visit that. So there's examples here that I'd be like, why would you want to go? Yeah. So, but there's also some that I would definitely get of why you would want to go there. Maybe.
Yeah, thinking along those lines with the TOS, like Planet and Bread and Circuses, the parallel Earth where Rome never fell. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to live in the Roman Empire.
Or the planet with this is a lot, but the like the German cult, like the Nazi Germany planet.
Nope, I've seen that movie before.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's TOS. There's a bunch of them, I think. A lot of because it's so Planet of the Week. You know, like a lot of those places ended up not being so good. You can bounce around there.
Oh, what's the planet with it's in Deep Space Nine where they're just constantly fighting, and they'll die and then they'll come back and they have to keep fighting.
Battle lines,
that would like for the Forever War type of idea for an episode. That just feels like would be just exhausting to get stuck there.
Yeah, those guys were not happy.
Yeah,
people that were stuck there. That's not a good existence. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a good call.
Yeah,
because that's a unique one. Like there's a lot of like common kinds of like inhospitable places because of weather or just like non-welcoming cultures, residing there. But that one is like really specific.
Yeah.
Weird science fiction
type of idea.
Conceit. That would make it really not good at all. Yeah, Cyber Honey Battle Lines. Really.
Yeah.
Great call.
Yeah. That would be. Because I can't remember, but I think it's kind of like a cavey type of planet where it's like really dark and dingy.
It's miserable.
Yeah, it's like, one of the worst places, I think. And
when your existence is just wanting to die, like for real die.
Yeah, for real die. That's when it's like, well, maybe this environment isn't for me.
It's really not good. Others.
We haven't really talked about this, but I think there's some places in time where I wouldn't want to go. I think during the occupation on Bajor, I think people I would not want to be on Bajor during the time of the occupation, because I think in later seasons, like we get like with O'Brien's going on a picnic somewhere in that kind of area, but I think there's also some places in time where I would not want to go to. So
true.
The in Discovery, the ship that's kind of in like I don't know, like places of isolation, I guess, where like the seeds are, and if you were on that, or if we kind of talked about this, the Tikov, or the relay station in
Aquiel.
Aquiel, that type of that's kind of still in Federation space, kind of. But
I wouldn't mind. That's the thing. I wouldn't want
places of
to.
isolation, I think also would be a bad place to go. Is what I'm
For
trying
sure.
to say.
Yeah. A place like that like I could think if you have to stop by and like drop off a, you know, do a quick repair. Like visiting is one thing, but having to work there
Yeah,
would really suck. That's
that'd be
the
tough.
for some of those kinds of places. Visiting and living are
That's true. That's
two
true.
different realities.
We're talking about visiting here, so I think you're right.
Yeah. Like the planet at the end of season 3, Discovery, where the in the Berubin Nebula, where the ships crashed.
Yeah.
The dilithium.
And the holodeck is.
That.
Yeah, that would be. That's not a good place to go.
No.
Yeah.
No. Definitely not. That's a good place to avoid.
Yeah.
Mirror universe.
Oh, I would hate to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of examples in the mirror universe, but yeah, I think so.
That's a big no thanks.
No thanks. Would not want to visit there. Yeah.
Anything we missed in the chat? A lot of things rattled off. At least touched them all. Elon, favorite son. Yeah, I think we touched pretty much everything there. Any last ones that kind of come to mind for you for the Meniar and Vendikar, the two planets fighting the war in A Taste of Armageddon? The computerized.
That would suck. That's another good TOS one.
Yep. TOS is rich with this stuff. Like I said, you could just kind of rattle off the Return of the Archons, that planet with the festival.
Yeah.
You don't want to get caught up in that.
No.
Landru. It's just because of the nature of that show with the sort of Planet of the Week structure and the Strange New Worlds approach lends itself to a lot of that.
Yeah. Are we gonna get something like? Do you think we'll
sure
get bad places to visit in Strange New Worlds?
I'm very confident that will happen if we do this time next year. Hopefully, if we were doing the stop at this time next year, we'd have some new stuff to unpack.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's. We did rattle off a whole bunch of different places.
That Romulan settlement in Picard that started off looking really nice in Absolute Candor. Remember they flash back at the beginning of that to it's like post resettlement. It looks like a really nice colony.
Yeah.
But when they go back in like contemporary time in Picard to pick up, they end up getting Elnor. That colony is not a happy place.
No.
That's a pretty scary.
Well,
Wild West,
unregulated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think any place in the Romulan Empire, I feel like, would be very scary. Because there's lots of unknowns in there. And,
it's a big risk.
It's a very big risk.
I feel like there and the Cardassian, like people are mentioning, they feel like kind of like by visiting those two places is kind of like taking a tourist trip to like North Korea. Like maybe you'll be okay if you stay completely kosher and you follow all the protocols and they guide you and you don't do anything wrong. But even if you do, they might want to make an example of you and you get sucked into their judicial system and you are
you're dead. Yeah.
Rude. And I feel like both of those places that could happen. So it just feels like a really reckless taking your life into your hands a risk to dabble too much in those two regions.
Yeah.
How about the planet in the Enterprise episode Strange New World, where there's the psychedelic, kind of like the Sun of Paradise.
Yeah.
It's spores and stuff in the atmosphere that'll.
But it makes you paranoid.
It'd be a good trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get stuck on Meridian, or you'll be gone for 60 years.
Yeah, that's true. That is
Mhm.
true.
And actually, I think the way the end of that episode is kind of portrayed, isn't it? Like you can't even go with them; you'll just die. Like she gets
Yeah.
the planet was disappearing, and couldn't she couldn't go with them. Like she was out of phase or something, if I remember correctly. So bound to have a bad ending there.
Yeah. What's that? There's another one like that in Deep Space Nine where they like crash on the planet, but then they crash again. Like there's somehow they get, I don't know, I can't remember the episode name. But it's where Odo like, it's like a different Odo comes to Kira, and that's
Children of Time.
yeah, Children of Time.
They get stuck in yeah. They meet their ancestors.
Yeah.
Or they meet their descendants.
Descendants, yeah.
Their descendants. Yeah. That's less about the right now. The planet had like that's what happened. The planet had like a weird.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Thing.
But
they had a temporal barrier thing going
yeah.
on in it. That's I think what caused it, right?
Yeah, because if they leave, or if they figure out a way to leave, these people won't exist.
Right.
So I think they
a pretty bad dilemma. You know, that was pretty painful.
They decide to well, the majority of the crew decide to stay. There's one that does not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's other places in time. Like, I think I wouldn't even want to be on the station during the occupation of Bajor. I think that's a bad place.
Any place run by the Cardassians.
Yeah, in any time really, it would be bad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
I agree. Remember Data's home planet?
Oh yeah.
Wrecked by the crystalline entity. Any place that's in the path of that thing.
Yeah, get out of there.
You don't want to be.
Yeah.
Don't want to run into that.
Yeah, I think that about does it. If you guys have any more, if you guys think any more, don't hesitate to come to the Discord server, or even the even Twitter is a good place as well.
Comment on that. Yeah.
But yeah, this has been fun. This has always been fun. Talking about worst places to be. We will be back next week.
No.
We won't be back next week, right? It's a holiday here in the States. Back in 2 weeks to talk about more track. But we will be back for more core setting, talking about the episode of the week. So definitely stay tuned for that. And we'll see you guys. Have a good week off. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.